And switching gears to the Middle East now, a delegation of Israeli officials flew to Bahrain to hammer out the details of the country's formal signing of the declaration of peace between the two governments. But is it really a peace agreement? And U.S. Secretary of Defense Mark Esper has met with his Israeli counterpart to discuss the sale of F-35s to the United Arab Emirates. RT correspondent John Huddy has the latest on the story. He's joining us now. John, what are the Israelis' concerns about these sales of the F-35s?
Well, first of all, for Israel, it's really about maintaining its military edge and military superiority in the Middle East region. You know, as you mentioned, Manila's Secretary of Defense Esper met with Israeli Defense Secretary and Co-Prime Minister Benny Gantz to discuss, among other things, and notably the possible sale of U.S. F-35 stealth fighter jets to the UAE. Israel remains concerned about that, but Secretary Esper said the relationship between the U.S. and Israel has never been stronger, adding that the cornerstone of the U.S.-Israel bond is, quote, preserving Israel's qualitative military edge in the region, in the Middle East region. The QME is a term we've heard a lot in recent weeks having to do with this sale, and specifically Israel and the United States. If the deal does go through on or by December 2nd, the jets probably will not touch down in the UAE for another 6 or 7 years. This, according to U.S. Ambassador to Israel David Friedman in a recent interview with the Jerusalem Post. And then it takes time, obviously, to train pilots to fly the stealth F-35 fighter.
The Trump administration is moving forward with the plan to hold internet companies accountable for the content posted on their platforms. Now, the move has already been heavily criticized from those who say it could have unintended consequences. But given the timing, it's not clear if or when these new rules might go into effect. RT's Rachel Blevins is joining us now live from the newsroom with the details to all of this. So, Rachel, what is the DOJ proposing right now?
Well, Manila, the Department of Justice is expected to submit a proposal to Congress today, which comes 4 months after the Trump administration announced it was taking action against some of the top social media platforms on the internet. This is an updated version of the proposal the DOJ announced back in June, which would do away with Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act of 1996. Reports claim the new version would still take away the legal immunity that was ensured by Section 230, but only for certain platforms. Sites like Facebook and Twitter could stand to lose their legal protections if they facilitate criminal activity or know of unlawful conduct but don't restrict and report it, or if they don't spell out content moderation practices and follow them consistently. Now, it's no secret the top platforms have been criticized for failing to combat hate speech and for handing down suspensions and bans to users with no notice or explanation whatsoever. But critics of this move say they fear that Facebook and Twitter will become even more heavy-handed with their regulations if they know they are being held responsible for the content posted by their users. President Trump became a vocal supporter of ending Section 230 after Twitter started fact-checking and labeling his own post. He is expected to meet with a handful of Republican state attorneys general from Texas, Arizona, Utah, Louisiana, Arkansas, Mississippi, South Carolina, and Missouri today to discuss the matter. The Trump administration is also still in the process of pursuing antitrust investigations against some of the top companies on the internet. And today, Justice Department officials are reportedly planning their own call with staff for the dozens of state attorneys general involved in the investigation into Google.